Kia ora koutou. Welcome to another edition of the Hot Air Sports Podcast with me, the Goose, and my good mate, the Couch. And we've got a very special guest with us today to talk about his career, both as a player and as an administrator in football. A very warm welcome to Frank Van Hattum. G'day, Frank.
Morning,
Hey,
guys.
Frankie. How are you, buddy? How are you?
I'm as good as you can be.
Oh, beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Getting all set to head off to the States for the World Cup.
Yep, starting to get a bit real now. 3 weeks, I think it is, and 2.5 weeks, and then let's hope Iran turn up, or maybe Iran don't turn up, and we go into the next round. So
Yeah, well, that'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Ooh, yeah, that's a
This interview, Hot Air Glory Days, it is, we call them, Frank, where we hit up some of our favourite sports and media stars from days gone by, talk about their upbringing and their careers, the wins, the losses, the glory and despair, and their lives post their glory days. So let's start right at the beginning. Born and raised, where did you grow up, Frank?
the big challenge with this podcast is you got to remember that people don't always remember us.
this is true. Have to be about
No,
our age.
I was born in New Plymouth, back in the 50s. Yeah, going figure that
Woohoo.
that's pretty quite a way away. So mum and dad immigrated out from Holland in the early 50s in the great Dutch invasion and settled in New Plymouth. And I left when I was 16, but most of my family's still down that way. So
And you've got a couple of sisters who have done pretty well in sport.
yeah, I've actually got three sisters, and one of them went to the top five in the world in karate and
Oh,
represented New Zealand and became a New Zealand coach. So not to be messed with that lad. So they looked after that in the 80s, 90s, I think it was, 90s, maybe a bit later. So she did really well, got number 4 or 5 in the world. And my two sisters, one was a goalkeeper, Gracha, or Cha as we called her. So she was back in the 80s as well, and when the women's football was really just starting.
Mm.
And my other sister, Maria Jose, or Zay, she also was a midfielder for the All Whites and sorry, not the All Whites, for the whatever they called them back there, the New Zealand women's football
Yeah,
team.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so they've they did really really well, but long before they were the trailblazers in women's football, um, and you see what it was like back then, and now look at it, it's just been a fantastic growth
Absolutely.
spurt. So,
Yeah, it's amazing, eh? The women's game is growing
mm.
so much. What school did you go to, Frank? And when did you first start playing football?
We started playing. Dad set up a football club called Central, and back then schools didn't have football teams.
Yeah.
It was actually more a club-based thing in New Plymouth. And soccer as we called it back then. It was the world called it back then. It was, that was sort of like a third-rate sport. It was all still rugby and league
Yeah.
didn't really exist, etc., etc. But he set up a team called Central, and that was just a local school team, but he just took that name. I went to Francis Douglas Memorial College, nice brothers college back in the day. It's got some pretty famous sportsmen over the years, and
Mm.
instead of
Barrett brothers.
Hmm.
the Barretts, I went to school with a couple of the Barrett uncles and brothers. So the Barretts all went. You had lots of people that have gone through that era, and it's a who's who of sports memorabilia. You need some really great rugby players, obviously, very good cricket players, and not too many soccer players, but now there seems to be a few more coming through there. So yeah, so yeah, pretty much started as right at the beginning because Dad didn't know anything else, and there was nobody who was going to do rugby. So
Yeah.
started football, and life began from there.
Who are some of your childhood heroes and influences in your early days?
Yeah, that's interesting because people says, "Oh, you must have, we lived and died for football." We did, but it was media was not instantly available. So we would get the match of the day was our only input of football, and that was on lunchtime on a Sunday,
Yeah.
12:30.
Brian Moore.
Brian Moore, and
Yeah.
so all of my mates, when they were 13, 14, 15, 16, we would all go down and kick balls around at the local East End beach. There's a nice little area that's been set up there, and we just kicked, and had fun there. And then we all race around to our place to watch Match of the Day because we had a little TV. But that was our input, and the other major input was a Shoot magazine, and it still exists
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
Um, And so therefore you get your coloured pictures and your whole wall adorned with, cutouts from these magazines. And then any other football was usually done by, someone who secured tape, so they'd have film evenings, so World Cups, you wouldn't watch the World Cup because they didn't have them live, didn't have
Mm.
satellites, all that sort of stuff. But they would have tapes and you'd go in and have, the old Super 8 and everything like that, and people will pay 50 cents and you'd watch, Brazil, and you'd watch
Yeah.
Jairzinho's goal from Buddy, on the angle, that one that we all remember, in Pele. And
Yeah.
so that was it, and it was grainy, but it was such exciting. And then, the same with the FA Cup, we got that. But that was sort of, like a grainy TV picture, satellite with Mega out and all the other things. But that was big because everyone, you didn't get to choose what time you watched or what time you get
Yeah.
your TV working. And we didn't have VHS, whatever the thing was back then,
No.
to play it on tapes until a few years later. So yeah, it was more a social get together of everyone, which helped the atmosphere and the build up. And then from that, I was sort of like Pat Jennings was
Oh
one,
yeah.
and
Oh
we
yeah.
looked at him and those giant hands, and Southall from
Oh
Everton.
yep. Yep.
And then later, you're sort of like Ray Clements and that. And Ray Clements came out here actually.
Yep.
Someone brought him over for some tour, and we all caught up, and that was really interesting because he was at the '82 World Cup, but he didn't get a game. So
Yeah.
I remember we were doing a guest speaking gig together, and we was talking about football, and then someone reminded him that he had never played a World Cup, and and that's embarrassing because he was something else as
Oh
well. So
yeah.
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 Mm.
So what about overseas teams then? You watched a bit of overseas football, obviously on the grainy black and white TV and stuff. Did you have a team that you followed or supported?
Yeah, most of it would have been Liverpool was a real popular one, mainly because of the song.
Oh
And
yep.
we unfortunately lost a few of our mates, early, in the early days, and so the song was always played at every special occasion, and it became a funeral song as well.
Mm.
Um, and so that really sort of got a lot of people started on Liverpool. There was all the idiots that supported Man United because they didn't know any better. And I've pretty much maintained that right through, where I just, when someone asks me who I support, I say anyone but Man United, just to annoy all those
Oh.
closet bloody Man United fans out there.
Oh,
That
mate, you're a
sounds
fr
that's a familiar sounding
yeah,
statement.
you're a
Mm.
genuine friend of the show, mate. You're a friend of the show forever with that sort of comment. I love it.
Um, any other sports you played as a youngster, Frank? You did
Yeah,
dabble
yeah,
in
and then some
cricket
other,
or
yeah,
softball or
yeah. No, we all, summer we all played cricket, and wasn't very good at it. And then Dad tried to get us to get into swimming because my elder brother, and my elder sister were really good swimmers. Used to go down to the local Carwell pool at 6 in the morning, and chewing through the laps down there. And Dad used to drag me along as a third child, and I hated it. It was bloody cold. It was miserable, and I couldn't really swim, and I didn't want to swim, and everything like that. But they went on to be in the local championships, and they called the tally printers or whatever they say. So they could have gone on, but then my sister pulled out because she thought the chlorine in those days was ruining the color of her hair, which it was, and and then they just did what kids do. They didn't stick with it. So yeah, I played a bit of squash, a bit of everything really.
Mm.
We all did everything that was was up for going. If someone was doing a running race, we'd go and do that. If someone did. So, but really, football was being dominating force right through. We played right through the summer and five-a-side. Self managed games, all that sort of stuff. And then time ran out for other sports as I got older. So.
And
why
when did you real?
goalkeeper?
Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah. And
sorry.
when did you realize you were good? And why goalkeeper? Why did you decide to be goalkeeper?
I have no idea. Dad since passed 10, 15 years ago now. So, but he sort of, I suppose when I got thrown in the end, I was always playing a little bit outside my age. Um, and then no one really wanted to go and goal until I did. And, back then height wasn't a great problem because I couldn't touch the bar, anyway, and not many other kids could when you're little at that age.
Yeah.
It was just something I started with and stuck with, and seemed to get quite good at it. So it just carried on. But the one thing that really set football apart from other sports was the junior programs. Like every school holidays, the local rep teams would go off to a tournament somewhere. And then back in those days, that was exciting. You'd go away, none of the flash stuff now. You wouldn't go on motels, no one could afford it. There'd be a bus or there'd be some cars. You'd meet at a railway station in Hamilton, and then people would read your name out, and you'd just go off with some complete strangers and billet.
Billeted, yeah.
And I still, get people coming up and says, I billeted you, and and Whangarei and in 1976 and then quite a few of the Wellington boys that went on to be good footballers. And I billeted occasionally with the Roofers, and then there's some really other good Wellington players that John Cameron from Miramar, and lifelong friends that who billeted at our place, and especially because I left at 16, but Dad and Mum kept billeting players from all around, the football teams coming around. But that was a really a great experience for kids, because you got to fundraise, you go on bottle drives and do all the things to get you to these tournaments. And then there's an exciting week in the holidays, and there's lots of quadrangular tournaments and that. Whereas that wasn't a rep thing, wasn't a big thing for the rugby or the cricketers or things like that. So we were pretty lucky in that respect. And like I say, they still do them nowadays. These tournaments at teams, the local representative teams, and I got in the rep from, I think they started them at 9, and then there was the 12-year-olds were the big tournaments, and 14s and 16s. Then that was a highlight of every year, as the reason for getting out of bed in the morning and training and doing all the things you want to do as a kid and play sport.
Yeah.
Well, that Winton chap didn't turn out to be too bad a footballer, did he?
Yeah, he's had a little bit of talent. Even back then, like he was obviously, I was same age as Shane and played in a number of teams, rep teams against him, and Winton was behind us. And I could tell you a story which, I always remember the first time we went and stayed there. And they lived on the road right beside the airport in Wellington and Miramar there. And, we went and stayed there with their family. And we knew them quite well at this stage. And then the boys told me, Winton and Shane said, oh, we're going out to do a milk round. I said, well, I do a milk round in New Plymouth, you get money and everything like that. And so I went out on this milk round, and it wasn't quite like the milk round I was used to, where you actually gave people milk for when you see a bottle and a token in it. It was about, they would look at the empty bottle and look at the token and the money, and would take a few cents out of it. And I absolutely, shit myself, because I thought, well, God, if I get caught here, that's my life over.
Go down on your permanent record.
But, lovely family, and like I say, passionate about football, and obviously the genes were there, and and obviously both of them went on to have really successful careers, and and now their kids are giving it a go as well. So.
Yeah, and obviously it was part-time or sort of semi-professional when you were sort of starting out. What did you do for a crust, mate? What did you do for a job?
Well, it wasn't really even considered semi-professional. It was just, there was no, you play for times. So I've always done, because I come from a large family of eight brothers and sisters, and there wasn't a lot of money around to do anything. So, and to go off in your sporting endeavours was a great drain on finances. So you really had to go and do your own fundraising and everything like that. So the basics, mum and dad could do this, but nothing else. So we'd all go out and fundraise. So all my holidays, everything, I always worked. I had paper rounds, milk rounds. When I got a bit older, I worked in a fish factory one summer holidays, and in Whitechurch. And then I also did a job at Hume's making concrete pipes. So that was my first experience at physical work, which I didn't really take too well, because I was a puny little runt. So when I moved to Hamilton, which was to basically to go and further my football career, because there was no further opportunities in. And I was bloody hopeless at it, so they put me on the forklift, and I was bloody hopeless on that, because I smashed all the pipe. But then they were into demolition of their factory, and they're moving to a new one. They said, you'll be ideal with that. So I just drove the forklift for 3 months and just smashed walls down. So I just then that didn't last very long. So then I went off to work for the power station, and I haven't done really any late physical work since. So I've been. So then, then the football really was taking off. Like I was 17 and playing for Hamilton AFC the year that they won the treble, the league, and they had some really outstanding players: Keith Nelson, Alf Stamp, and pretty much the whole team was, was really amazing. And I was in the squad of the under-19s, right behind them. I was 17 or something.
So what year was this approximately?
I think it was 76 6, something like
Okay.
that. Yeah,
So your
7,
main
6.
rivals would have been like Mount Wellington.
No, well, there was. I was still studying in the under-19s, and we
Yeah.
would follow on. But we would train with the first team, and I'd occasionally sit on the bench.
Yeah.
But that was the National League back then, which
Yeah.
there was Mount Wellington, North Shore,
Stop
Christchurch,
out. Yeah.
Trans-Torres United in those days. Everyone's
Yeah.
changed the names, a few Wellington teams. And so the next year, I played as well, and then the third year, sorry, in '78,
Mm.
I'd been to a training school, one of these out of one of the rep teams that have been picked, and they picked the New Zealand team to go and have their week's training in Massey,
Yep.
and they'd bring all the top coaches in there. And back then there was Barry Truman and Alan, and that's it. They were sort of just starting out, and Alan Jones them and tried to sign me, and that's why I ended up going to Hamilton. And then from there, I got an offer to go to Manurewa,
Yeah.
and it coincided with Fallon going to from Gisborne to Hamilton,
Mm.
and then he was pretty decided to go
Take-
there a little bit, in
Yeah.
awe of Fell back in those days because he was a rather large. He was a player coach then, and he was pretty,
I
pretty
can
miserable to play
imagine.
against because he didn't take prisoners. Yeah, and so I then went off to for Manurewa, who were only in the Northern League, and that was a year that we won the Northern League, and we won the FA, sorry, not the FA Cup, the Chatham Cup.
Yep.
We won the in the Trans Tasman, sorry, the New Zealand Cup, which was the top teams of the National League versus the Chatham Cup winner. So we won all three trophies that year, and
Wow.
then we were in the National League, and then I
And you
got
were playing
started.
most of the time
Well,
then.
I played that whole season,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
First choice
So
keeper.
I was brought in, and he had a huge number of young players,
Yeah.
and they've all been through the reps, and all that Franklin area, and from Manurewa,
Mm.
and that team just took the New Zealand football by storm that year,
I was
and
a
so
very disappointed young schoolboy watching that 1978 Chatham Cup final in the stands at Trafalgar Park.
yes. So that was, and back then in the day when New Zealand football, we used to surprise with some really, really, rational decisions like, oh yeah, we'll have a neutral FA Cup, Chatham Cup venue, and so we'll go and play it at Nelson against Nelson, in a really, sort of friendly environment. And they'd
Yeah.
had and that, funny enough, they'd had the cup the year before because they'd
Mm.
beaten
They
Mount
had, yeah.
Wellington in the cup, and
Mm.
so we're going down there as lambs to the slaughter because Nelson was the National League in that phase, and they were heavy favourites, and we managed to win 1-0, and like I say, back then that Manurewa team had a lot of great talent. And Mark Armstrong went on to play for New Zealand, and he actually left on the plane straight after the game to go and join the New Zealand team, and a couple of road accident that curtailed his career, but he made a comeback and made some New Zealand games. But would have been one of our top players, Chris Turner.
Yeah.
So that was a really a really young, great side. That was good to be with, and obviously setting a lot of careers on their way.
Mm.
What other clubs did you play for after Manurewa?
It'd be easy to go, which clubs didn't I play for? And that's the thing when you because I played till I was about 35, 38, and
Yeah.
I gave up when the National League was canned, and one of the many experiments that New Zealand football started engaging in. But I played for in the National League, so I played for Mount Wellington. Not Mount Wellington. That was the only team I didn't play for. I played for University, Papatoe, Manurewa, Christchurch United, Wellington Diamond United, and I'm sure there's another one somewhere. But yeah, so it's sort of like sorry, yes, I also played for Mount Maunganui.
Yeah.
When they were having their start on the run in the National League with when the Edge was there. So I've been around and usually played with teams that were not quite favourites. So and from a goalkeeper that was quite good because I love being busy, and if all else is failing, usually you're going to get a camera shot taking a photo of you diving and occasionally saving.
True.
Very, very busy.
And what about your first real big game, mate, that you remember Probably that Chatham Cup final, would it be, or what your
Yeah,
first
probably the Chatham
real?
Cup. Yeah, but lots of the junior ones when you're coming up, on a final of a tournament or something like that. But the Chatham Cup was a really official one, where you sort of,
Yeah.
and I got man of the match and sort of good press and everything like that. So that was the first one, and my first game in New Zealand was in for New Zealand was in 1980 in Fiji. So
Okay.
that was really large, and basically every game is quite important when it doesn't matter what it is, you're starting and you're zip nil all, and you don't want to embarrass
Absolutely.
yourself, and you you want to win. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Talking about that first game against Fiji for the All Whites, how did you find out that that you'd been selected to play for your country?
Yeah, in those days you didn't get telegrams or anything like that because no one could afford to send them, or even if someone, the only telegram got was someone died. So you didn't really want one of those.
No.
But you used to get a phone call or a letter or something like that, and it was we were going to a tournament in New Caledonia, but there was two games to be done in Fiji, and so that was in 1980, and I think Fallon was a coach, and he had some other guy with him. Not Fallon wasn't there.
Mm.
Can't remember the guy's name. He was I didn't get on with him because he dropped me a year after the coach when he was coaching Papatoe, so I conveniently forgotten him. Yeah, but I remember
Fair
the game
enough.
explicitly because it was played in a real tight pitch. It was the typical surface in Fiji,
Yeah.
very wet, very lush ground, hard to run on it. Frog in training, you'd be lots of frogs on the ground and they'd all jump out and something. So, but we won that one 2-0, which was,
Nice.
was was really good. But the crowd was really brutal, right on the touch lines and screaming, and as the islands do, and they're great, passionate people. So that
They
that was
are.
good. The interesting thing was that we then went to New Caledonia and didn't do so well. In fact, we lost 4-1 to Fiji, and you suddenly sort of so that team was sort of self-destructing, and
Mm.
um, and that was the start of the World Cup.
Yeah, the
So if
build
you
up.
think about that, they came back and we'd had a nightmare tour of New Caledonia. We'd been there for
Mm.
something like 3.5 weeks or something,
Mm.
and so there was problems, and there was a mixture of new people and old people and people being tried I think it was the start of Ed's New Zealand career. I
Yeah.
think he took it in '79 or whatever,
Mm.
but then they came back and there was a bit of a soul searching. They were talking about sacking everyone and blah blah blah.
Mm.
And I felt I'd done all right over there. The games I played, we won and everything. So I was quite happy with that. Um, and then they announced out of the blue a game against Mexico at Mount Wellington
That's right. And that was the
in,
start of it.
1981, and there was
Yeah.
and Fallon had been brought in, and they got rid of Vic Mobley was the guy I was thinking about
Right.
before.
That's
And
yep.
so they got rid of him. But they also got rid of quite a few players who were at the end of their careers or who hadn't worked out.
Mm.
And then they brought in about five Gisborne players and some Simonson and Bobby Creswell and Buzzer Mackay and
Yep.
Graham Turner, and there was four or five others that were around the place. And some of the Australian guys that have been playing over there weren't available for the game, and it was played on a midweek night, and I think there was about 4,000 people at McKinley Park, and somehow we beat them 4-0.
That's right.
And actually, we played. I still remember, we played really well. It felt easy, and sort of like. And you can say, oh, they were a bit cold and all the other stuff. It was a football match and they were
Yeah.
international.
Yeah.
And then New Zealand once again in their wisdom said, oh, this is wonderful. We now need to, develop on that. So they did a tour within about 3 days and announced, oh, we'll go to Canada and play there. And and so there was, players not available, and we
Bit of
said we'll go over
planning.
to Canada, and we only took one goalkeeper, me,
What?
and I was injured. I'd actually broken a bone in my foot,
Great.
and it was sort of not diagnosed, but I was getting treatment, and I
Yeah.
said, "No, I can't. I probably can't go." Well, we've got nowhere else, and we went and lost 1-0
Oh,
in
jeez.
Vancouver and to Canada, and then 2-0 or something like that.
Yeah.
But we played on the AstroTurf, which is not like AstroTurf now. It was like felt, on a pool table that is in the
Yep.
public park at Petone had been there for 40 years. It was worn out and it was
Yeah.
awful. And that was, we'd never played on it before. And
Yeah.
so we came back a little bit bloody tails between the legs, and then they announced the squad to start the '82 run, and the rest is history from there, actually. So,
Yeah, mate, it must have been fun making some diving saves on those.
yes, there was a lot of, but in those days, and most of the pictures, goalkeepers, you see them. You don't see, worn patches on any pitch now.
No,
It's all beautiful, lush grass. You don't see any mud,
no.
and what we were doing, we were diving on bloody grounds that are baked hard, no grass on them, and the mud's baked hard, and it just rips your skin. And can't tell you how many sheets have been thrown away because you stick to them because they just,
Oh,
well, it
oof.
was exactly all.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
you don't get that now, and even on the modern AstroTurf, it's this
no.
grass, it's you slide and everything like that, and sort of. But those burn marks where it just takes a very top layer of your skin is the most painful
Ugh.
experience out. Yeah. So
You're talking about mentioned the 1982 World Cup program. Is a hell of a qualifying process, wasn't it?
yeah, well, from it was because, and that's what I think got the whole country involved
Oh, it
with the
did.
sport. It wasn't, the Springbok fiasco was going on in '81,
Yep.
and then somehow on the sideline we were getting headlines because on Anzac Day in '81 when we were having we played Australia.
Yep.
And that was the old enemy. And it was make or break, lose that, and you're pretty much stuffed because only one
Yep.
team was qualifying.
Yep.
And then we actually did really, really well. And Richard Wilson was in goal, and they had a pretty good looking side in front of them. And we sort of got 3 goals, but there was we made a couple of mistakes ourselves, and we got a 3-3 draw.
That's right.
And I remember the public, and that was when Mount Smart didn't have the stand on it on the west side. It had that little stand on one side,
Yeah.
but there was a massive crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But what happened? And while we were so disappointed, came off, and people were throwing teapots in the dressing room. Yeah, Fallon was coach, didn't you?
Of course he was.
So, but that was the sheer passion that he brought to it, and then there was a possibility that they might have changed Richard because he had a couple of mistakes in that game.
Mm.
And then they made the decision. They said, no, in any other year, if we got, we're really disappointed, but if we got 3-3, we've been celebrating.
Yeah.
So and it's the first game, maybe we stick with what we've got, and the rest is history. So for 15 games, we then travelled to Indonesia, Taiwan. And you
Where
got to
didn't you
remember
go?
politically,
Oh,
back then Oceania was just dumped with all the other people they couldn't find a home for. So
yeah.
now Israel's part of in that sort of environment back then.
mm,
Taiwan, a couple of others. So then when we got all around, we went on and didn't lose a game or a goal for another 9 games. So we went and played Indonesia, Taiwan, and then came back and played them in our place, and then we ended up with that famous game in Sydney, which
Yeah.
was make or break, and we could have got away with a draw and hope, but
That Grant Turner goal.
well, actually, both goals. You remember
Yeah.
Wooden's
True.
goal as
yeah,
well,
Wooden's
and
goal.
that
Yeah,
Yeah.
was some
True.
goal, and
Yep.
the team there was a some performance because there was a really, really angry crowd at the Sydney Cricket Ground. Great venue to play, and we were, written off again, and we were crap and all that sort of shit, and then that Grant Turner goal, it's still one of the best goals you'll ever
Oh,
see.
absolutely. Best
And
header.
yeah, absolutely. But it was a whole move, and
Yeah. Yeah.
even
Build
Duncan
up.
Cole, God bless him, he's now deceased, but
Yeah.
he put over a magnificent cross,
Absolutely.
and of course, then to go to 2-0 and doing that relatively easy. And then so you think, oh yeah, we've qualified. And then, the public, that's all, they couldn't work it out. And said, what do you mean you got to go and play some more games? You just won your series. And you think,
Yeah.
no, no, now we've got to go to another series.
That's
And
right.
that's when they, done the dirty and says, oh, you can play the winners of the Middle Eastern sections and everything. And then played China. So we played that game, obviously, or that series. And when you look at it, the results were in that flash. When you consider we drew with Saudi and 2-2, Ricky got a header in the last minute,
That's right.
and then we lost 2-1 to
Kuwait.
Kuwait.
Oh,
that
that
And then
was
famous,
that
China,
was.
China
infamous
was a big
game.
game. Yeah,
I was
China
at
was a
that
big.
game. I was at that
Yeah,
game.
yeah.
Yep. I
But then,
remember.
if you're also at the game, you remember by then the crowd had actually swelled, and it was huge. The crowd,
Yeah.
the whole bank was covered up. And I think on one of the last games, there was something like 30.
Yeah.
Memory doesn't know the numbers, but it was a massive amount
It
of people.
was.
And then once again, we now suddenly do that, and then we're still not, qualified. So, and by this stage, the world media is interested because we know we're the last ones to qualify, or
Yeah.
it's us or China.
Yeah.
And as you say, to go then and have another neutral game against a team to go the biggest event in the world, and we'll play it in Singapore, which is really
Yeah.
populated by white people
Yeah.
and no Chinese. So
No.
so when we turned up and there's 80,000 people there was 3 or 4,000 Kiwis, and most of those were from the army that was based over in and we had a wonderful experience with them. They took us shopping in there. Back then you can go to Singapore and buy things that were cheap and actually worked.
Yeah.
So that little crowd, and a few of the New Zealanders that could make it, it was really noisy, and like I say, it was a really a very angry stadium against New Zealand,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we're a hell of a game. It's sort of
Oh,
like the
wasn't
light
it?
misty, the sort of it was just stunning, and then to win, that, and then so the public had come with us on all those journeys,
Oh,
especially the playoff and Saudi to get there,
even
and they didn't
even
understand it.
yeah, even the game before where you had to win by the 5 clear goals, you're five
Mm.
nil up at
Mm.
half time. And
Yeah,
you're
well,
like
no, the real tragedy, because if you remember, we played Kuwait, and
mm,
we got 2 penalties against us, and Richard
that's
Tate
right.
kept us in the
Yeah.
game. And
I don't
so
think.
then when we went over to Kuwait, it was a really
Yeah.
vicious environment because they'd taken offence, to the way that they were being treated as cheats, and it wasn't their fault; it was the referee was doing stuff. But they took offence to some of the signs and everything like that. So they reciprocated, and they'd qualified at this stage. So, but they hated us. And so when we were going out there, it was very, very bitter. And the stadium was full because they'd given free tickets to everyone. And they'd wound them all up, and they had signs like "Go home to your kangaroos" and all that sort of thing. So they were getting a little bit mixed up in themselves. But a really, really difficult game, and and they were a good side.
Yeah.
And so we were doing all right, and then in the last minute, there was a corner came off, and there was Richard made a mistake, and they got it, and
That's right.
but it hadn't killed us, and so you could drop it, and the dressing room was really we'd done our chances, because it suddenly said we had to win 5-0. Yeah, that's unheard of, and it was really, really miserable atmosphere and everything that would failed and everything, and so. Anyway, somehow John got us up, and it was an interesting setup because once again we were playing on an artificial turf in Saudi Arabia, and then you wouldn't have done that in those days. Anywhere else, you wasn't able to play an artificial turf. Now you can, but it's the same thing. It was a sort of a felt thing. It was bloody awful, and we got one session on it, and somehow you just look at it. Everything was meant to be, and it's 5-0, and the public's all watching on TV now, and ringing their neighbours up. Oh, you got to wake up! They're 5-0 up at half
Yeah.
time, and all the other ones because everyone said,
Yeah.
no, you can't do it. It's just out of this
That's
world.
right.
And the lights are coming on everywhere, and you were getting stories back home about what happened and who wrestling and who, and people yelling in the street. And
Yeah.
then you say, well, if you get 5, you can get 6
That's
in
right.
the
It's
second
five
half.
nil at half time.
Yeah, but then the mind goes because you sit there and says,
Yeah.
but if they get 1, because the way
Yeah.
and you're doing all those calculations, if they get 1, they're going to get another 2, don't they? So no
Yeah.
one understood what was going on. And you think of the tension to sort of sit there and say, you could be 1 second away, and then someone's going to score in the last minute, and we're not going to the World Cup. So it just happened. It was brilliant. So
Yep, fairy tale story indeed.
yes.
Now what happened in the background, or was there any talk about it before? Because suddenly Richard, who'd played every qualifying game, was now sitting on the bench, and you're suddenly thrust
At the World
into the
Cup.
World Cup finals.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was a story. I just
This is yeah.
yeah, it's one of the enduring stories, and these theories and everything like that. And there was people forget that we played then 7 games, so we qualified against China, huge occasion, come back, and
Massive.
we're saying, well, now the World Cup's in June, so we've got 4 or 5 months to get some games and everything, and so they organised Watford for 2 games,
That's right.
who were a top first division
Yep.
Premier
John
League side
Barnes.
then.
Yep.
John Barnes was over here, and Luther Blissett, and a few
Yep.
others, and then they had 2 games against Hungary.
That's
We
right.
hadn't qualified, but we're a top-notch side in Europe.
Yep.
And then they had 5 games against the League of Ireland, and so there was plenty of games. Plus, there was some internal mucking around and lots of training camps and all the other stuff. And so I got 3 games. Richard got 3 games, and Barry Pickering, who's probably the most unsung goalkeeper of a lot of us, he was probably the best goalkeeper. If it's just not his time. Um, but then it came down that Richard was putting it in the coach's minds for starting to not perform at a level, that whether he was feeling the pressure or whatever. I had 3 really good games. I'm, confident, and back in those days, I was cocky a little bit, but I wasn't really. A lot of that was an act.
Yeah.
So then it got to the, and there was a bit of talk, but you keep saying, well, why would the coaches change anybody?
Yeah.
But I always remember this thing that's not widely known is that I remember John brought the whole team together, and he said, we can go over the air, and I could just pick, the same side that qualified in China, and if we get beaten 10-0 in Spain, then yeah, it'll be a miserable experience, but you're not taking any risk. He said, well, they did the work against China, they got us there and everything like that. He said, no, there's 5 months here, there's form, there's, time's gone on and everything. It's our job as professionals to run a professional environment, so we're going to pick the best team for every game. The team that we think will get the best result, given everything that we've got. And I thought, oh yeah, that's just words. But there was obviously a move afoot because, or a possibility because, I traditionally, the goalkeepers traditionally roomed together. Over 2.5 years, I'd room for Richard as we travel the world and everything like that. And we used to spend 3 months a year in hotels in Auckland, and so we was roomed together, and then we were sort of moved into different rooms. And so that was almost, like a, just in case there was a change, so there would be no, extra pressure on the, because when your midfielder gets chosen against another one, he's got 2 other positions you might go to as a goalkeeper. If you don't get picked, you're not going on.
You're not playing.
Yeah. So anyway, we got to Spain, and like I say, in the warm-ups, I was diving and doing all the things, and apparently he wasn't. I wasn't paying much attention to that. I was worried about myself. And so when they named the side, it was a shock to everybody, but it probably wasn't a shock to a lot of the internal players, because a lot of them were saying, oh, you'll get it, you'll get it. And I kept saying, don't think so. Why would he change it and everything? And he did. But then, and just as they obviously had the conviction to carry on with that philosophy, because one of the criticisms now from some players and even, the public was, oh, why didn't they just play, Richard for the last game, or what about some of the others?
Yep.
And then you go through, what about the other people that didn't get a game over in Spain, And so that's why, if you want to be professional, you can't pick choosers. You can't just suddenly think, oh, I'll bring on someone, in the last minute. And I think if you want to be critical now of, the latest team that Baisley's going around, there's a bit of controversy. He's picked Tommy Smith.
Yep.
And that's a bit of a shock to a lot of people. Tommy's been a great servant. He's some people can say, well, he didn't usually come back that many times because he's looking after his own career. And I can understand that, because a lot of our players, our problem is you bring them back to play local games back here, and they lose their position overseas because they can't usually get back in time to play on the weekend.
Yeah.
So the coach puts someone else in, and a lot of them lose their places. But, if you were picking, a professional environment, you say, well, I've got 26 people, then you're picking professionally those who there by form, or have got something to offer from a playing perspective. So I can't see how that works when he hasn't played, and he's and it's no fault of his. I get the bit, he's professional, he can have some really good extra experience on the bench, but they've got enough experience on the bench. I mean, Baisley's been to 5-6 World Cups, Olympics, and everything. Tony Reddings has been to all the Women's World Cups. Simon Elliott's been there. So people have been there. And to give up, to take a place is not that, to me, is a problem. And if you were thinking here and wanting professionalism, then there's 3 or 4 young kids who will never get on the park unless there's an absolute, flu bugger going on there, that you could have picked, who for the next World Cup, which we're a good chance of getting into because of the new format. You would then have 4 or 5 young players coming through, Lucas Visilic, or that Van, whatever his name is, from Tyrone, that really looks like a talent. Some of those other guys. And then next World Cup, you're going to have people who've been now through 2 World Cups. You have 9, 10 or 11, and the younger people would get that. So, if you take it's about being professional, then, I think they've lost a chance to actually develop now for the future.
So
And and all credit, Baintree will do really well out of it. They'll get 180,000 because each player clubs gets 10 or $11,000 or pounds. So, but in the end of the day, it's if the coaches are responsible, they make the decisions.
yeah. Well, I suppose what you're saying is that if Adzed was in charge now, Tommy Smith wouldn't be going. Is that what you're saying?
I would have thought that we would have made that decision not to take
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, well, that just shows you really, doesn't it, that Adzed was ahead of his time. He really was. I
Yeah.
mean, for all the facts that, half the team weren't professional, they were, semi-professional at best. He made the right decisions for, the tough
No,
decisions, didn't he?
no, it was worse than that. There was probably three-quarters of the team. Four.
There
It was
you
only
go.
two. It was only thing. I think there was only one professional at the time, and that was Winter.
Wow. Wow.
And the rest were just semi-pro, sort
Yep.
of thing. And most of us were working jobs. Most of the
Yeah.
team were working jobs.
That just shows you, hey,
So, yeah.
what a change. What a
Yeah.
change.
Yeah. Who
But,
are some of your
and that's the
so,
thing.
so
You'll never know who was right. Like I let in 12.
Yeah.
exactly.
Maybe Richard would have only let in 11. I
And
don't know.
so you played in all three games. You played against the Soviet Union, Scotland, and Brazil, of course. We
Yeah.
still remember that great save you made against Brazil on the far post. I mean,
Yeah.
just parrying it away. It was a great save.
But I missed the simple one from bloody
You
Zico.
did, mate. Wasn't going to bring that up.
It was funny because at that stage, because when we were playing Brazil, yes, they were a class side.
Oh, mate,
Yeah.
people still talk about that side as the best team never not to have
Yeah.
won the World Cup, right? The
So,
'82 Brazil
yeah.
side.
So we went out early for the game and we're practicing warming up and everything. And you can't help but watching. And I was
Oh,
watching Ida take practicing corners, and he was putting it on the crossbar every time, and with his right curling foot in. And then he came on the left foot on the outside of his right foot, and he was coming the other way and landing on the crossbar. And I was like, "Oh shit!" But during the game, I remember that Zico, because Zico
yeah.
was the man, right? And I thought, shit, he's not doing much, and I haven't seen much of him and everything. And then next minute he had that,
Oh,
that scissor kick over, and I got my fingertips to it, and I thought, if
you
I
did.
saved that, I would have carried on running, and it would just up beside me and
Quarterbacks.
everything like that. So,
Could have
but
retired happy.
that was an experience because they were a class. So, and funny, someone just sent me a clip the other day of the game, some highlights. And I thought, shit, they put the ball and they missed a lot of shots, they're putting over the top and everything. But so did we. There was a sort of like propensity for people to want to shoot from 18 yards, and we had 5 or 6 shots the same. Some had about 3 that went over the top, and but the crowd always the big thing I remember about that crowd is that they had a white kite flying, and it was done to music. So the crowd reacts to music, and they get every time Brazil attacks, it's a bit like the Asians. They get really squealy, and excitement and builds up crescendo, and there's either an ooh or an ah or a big celebration. But they also had a kite flying in the stand, and it was buzzing down, and the crowd were yelling and screaming when it got down close to the pitch and everything like this.
Things you
And
remember.
that was cool.
Uh, uh,
You watch the thing, and you'll see this kite flying around.
and I remember as a young boy watching that Scottish game. I think was that the first game, the
Yeah, we played
Scotland game.
Scotland first up. Yeah,
Yeah, because I remember crying after they scored that third goal, and I thought we're gonna get thrashed. I was a young boy, and I just couldn't take our team getting hammered. And then we scored a couple of goals, and I was a happy
yeah,
lad.
yeah.
But that
We all
Scottish,
we all felt a little bit like, well, this could be a hammering, and that goes to the lack of experience we had. If you go back then, we everyone after that World Cup sat back after that last game and said, we could have done better. We could have got 2 goals against bloody Russia. We could have got a couple against Brazil. We went, and we let through some soft ones, and just through build up, And it was funny because I was sitting with the after the Chile-New Zealand game just recently, we were before that game, they brought in some members of the '82 squad and the members of the 210 squad, and we were having a big dinner and everything like that, and sitting with all the players and giving a bit of wisdom and just chewing the fat. And we were talking about preparation, and I said to him, I can't believe you goalkeepers and the warm ups you do before games now. I said, I'd be
yeah,
buggered. I'd be absolutely knackered doing that. And they work and they sweat there, and then they come off and they don't do anything for 10 minutes. I said, I'd just freeze up, So
yeah.
we did that. So they were interested in how much coaching we had. And we said, well, we didn't have any coaching. Occasionally the coach would come throw a few balls at us. Well, most of our coaching, and I was throwing balls at Richard, or Richard was throwing at me, or Barry, or whatever.
Yeah.
And there was no real,
You're coaching each
technical
other.
coaching in my whole career,
Yeah.
and anyone's up until recent years. So we went away with 4 or 5 people, and 2 of those were self-funded. Like we had not a physio, a massage therapist, and was some old guy that, a lovely old guy,
Paid his own way.
paid his own way,
Yeah.
and we helped pay for him, and
Yeah.
a couple of others. They're taking 23 backroom staff, so you've got
Yeah.
coaches, assistant coaches, the coaches to the assistant coaches,
Yeah.
and you've got the goalkeeping coach, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and you
Throwing coach.
but that's the change now. And you
Yep.
look back then, none of that professionalism existed in New Zealand football, and we hadn't played a consistent amount of top games against actually professional sides. And but having said that, it makes it all that we didn't embarrass ourselves. Yes, we let through 12 goals, but we scored some, and actually, we got kudos for, as I say, the only person to come back after losing all 3 games, and we're still relatively considered
Yeah.
heroes, so,
Yeah.
and inspiration for some
Oh,
kids.
you're
So,
heroes to us, mate. You're heroes to us.
but you see the talent now that in the team, the New Zealand team, and and what he's got available is a really is could be great. But the trouble is,
Absolutely.
they've now got to go out there and not be
Yep.
overawed.
It's bringing them all together, isn't it? And
Yeah, and that's the
creating that
change
team.
now. We don't
Yeah.
need coaches of the national team. We need managers, because you're managing just
That's
people.
true.
And it's not about having them for weeks and weeks coaching. This
No.
clubs do that,
Yeah.
So your clubs are responsible for that. You're responsible for getting fit, and the manager's responsible for making it click on the day. And
Yep.
and that's what they've got to do. And sometimes, the whole lot of things can conspire to just destroy a game before you start. Whether
Yep.
they get too defensive or
Yep.
they get too open. No, and I was fortunate enough to be the head of delegation when we went to South Africa. And once again, there was a very good side.
Mm.
And there could have been some really great opportunities to go forward even more.
Mm.
But at what stage you do that and risk everything, so it's sort of,
Mate, they didn't lose.
they didn't lose.
No.
So
Unbeaten.
so that we did say on the dinner the other night that well, we've done, we've gone to the World Cup first, and qualified. And now we've gone to, and we've got 3 draws over there,
Yeah.
and now we haven't had a win. So now
Let's
it's
get a
simple.
win.
Just
Let's
one win, your job's done. So
Absolutely.
but
Just
it's going
going
to be
back
tough because
to
there's a lot of pace in the teams they're going to play. The
Yep.
best chance is
yeah,
actually against Belgium, I would have thought. But
Yeah, they're not too flash at the moment, are they? Really?
well,
Well,
they then went off and beat America 5-0, but
yeah, they
just
did.
recently.
Yeah, yeah, and they've still got
there's
Kevin De Bruyne, haven't they? I mean,
Yeah, so there's no such thing as a bad team they're playing.
no.
yeah.
I wouldn't underestimate Iran, because they're in top 30 of the world as well.
And I'd say they'd be motivated.
Yeah, and I hear there's a few Iranians live in America, so there's something like
Yeah.
350,000 live in, and so they'll be full in the stadium. So
Yeah.
I actually went and watched in Russia. We went and watched Iran versus Egypt, and we thought, oh, that's a bit of a crap game, but we'll go anyway. That was one of the best games of the tournament, and the crowds from both sides were just huge.
Crazy.
So that's the one thing New Zealanders probably won't appreciate. They'll see some pictures on TV, but to be in those sort of environments,
Yeah.
with thousands and thousands of people and a lot of them not going to the game, just hanging around cities and
Yeah.
partying,
Creating an atmosphere.
Yeah.
Just going back to the '82 World Cup, there was a lot of talk afterwards about the fact that New Zealand football didn't really take advantage
There
of
was.
what the team had achieved in bringing football forward in the country. Putting your chair of New Zealand football in later years hat on, what do you think we could have done in the '80s there to try and boost the game?
It's a very difficult one, because it all comes down to finance. And the idea was to get people better skilled and programs for juniors, because when right now a lot of those people that are playing on the New Zealand men's team and the women's teams and the futsal have come through some better programs for the whole of football programs, which is about getting more kicks and making sure there's better coaching and all the other things. So there's a lot more of that's gone on. Back then, though, you can talk about it, but then you sort of got a whole lot of amateurs, and you can't afford to get a professional league. And the amount of money to qualify for a World Cup, is all relative and it's damn expensive. And if you haven't got the money, it's small steps. So the bit about games in New Zealand is a red herring for me. If we're going to sort of, every coach that comes and says, "Oh, we need more games at home," that's not the answer. The answer is we need more games away, that doesn't interfere with the players who have got to get into better environments. And they're doing that now. We've got players and playing some really good leagues, really good football, and lots of other players exposed. And even in New Zealand now, we've got some, two professional teams. Plus a whole lot in Australia. So it's about getting players playing at higher levels, because I don't think you can sustain in New Zealand, even though it's got the same population as Denmark. It isn't a football nation, and rugby is struggling to provide that competition now.
Yeah.
So it was more about getting people the games that mean something and maximising their value and having the work done by the clubs, all around the world. And that started to happen. We've got credibility because people are working on the game at young ages. So we are taking 6, 7, and 8-year-olds, and they're getting 50 touches in a session rather than five and five.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can look back and say, yeah, we didn't, go too much further on it and everything like that. But it's the old story. There's just New Zealand football. We used to have a saying, it would be just moments of magic. And you think about the game in Bahrain and Wellington. If that is not the best memory of anyone's sporting achievements in New Zealand, or sporting games in New Zealand,
they weren't there.
It's up there, right? Or they weren't there.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean,
and so there's other moments of magic that have come along the way, and individuals as well. So we celebrate. And like I say, just hope this team does us proud. And there's another moment of magic that says that's why some kids will carry on playing. And
there will be,
yeah,
there will be moments, and hopefully it'll be every 4 years now. So we'll have that to look forward to. And we've got Auckland, making the grand final now. So we're on the path. I think we're on the right pathway now.
And that's it. And it's small steps, and you got to be relative to what's going on, and you don't want to waste money because right now the game's flush with money because FIFA is putting money in a lot of development, and for all the criticisms of FIFA, and there are many and many well deserved. There's also a lot of great stuff they do behind the scenes and promoting sort of things in football. So it's making sure that still trickles down so that the teams can compete and do a great job. So, and you think about it now, there's under 17 World Cups, there's under 20 World Cups,
that's true.
The Olympics and everything.
And we're at most of them, aren't we?
Yeah. And that's a huge financial burden on associations. And the other one is that every one of those tournaments is run on the same basis as the men's senior tournament.
Yeah.
So there's no compromise of the amount of the pageantry and all the other stuff.
That's right. And by the time they come through, if they've played the 17s, the 19s, they've had that experience, haven't they? Yeah, it's consistent.
But that's all assuming that the game gets fixed, and we're going to get really political here.
Oh, here we go.
VAR gets involved.
Oh, no. What are you doing? What do you do?
Let's simplify the offside. We cut the scrums out at the corners, and the game is getting ruined.
Oh,
if you sit in with a crowded room and watch the game, and they can't understand the decisions getting like rugby, and you're sort of saying, now I've got to wait 2 minutes for someone to decide whether someone's, they haven't trimmed their nose here, and that's offside.
We were going to ask you, mate. We were going to go there. We were the most recent one, of course, is the David Raya VAR thing, where Arsenal have been doing it all bloody season, and then let's go upstairs and have a look at this one. And there's a hand on him, but we're not going to look at anything that happened beforehand. I mean.
Yeah. It's just the game should be the game is relatively simple, and I think the offside can be simple and says if we're going to have VAR, and if you can't make a decision in 10, 15 seconds, then make a decision. It's either in the benefit of the attacker or the defender. Just call it what it is.
Go with the on-field.
The handball is a simple one. If it's a handball, doesn't even matter, right? If a goal scored, it's supposed to be no goal. So Man United got one the other day where it bounced up, hit his
arm. I saw that, yeah.
Put it in his pocket, and they sort of gave a goal, but a goal was scored after that. So
it was.
It was simple. We've got to make it simple. And the other one is this time wasting. It's so simple. Rugby league do it, and they play the same amount of time. Guess what? You don't have any extra time because they stop for everything.
They do. Yep.
The other one is you just change the rules and say, I'm going to send you, if you're making a substitution, you've got 10 seconds to get off. The game is going to start. If you interfere with play, you're then sent off. And by the way, then the other player can't come on. And stop the slow walking and everyone going on. And the bullshit that people are getting frustrated with. It used to be with diving, and then people were rolling 15 times and then running, getting up 2 minutes later and running the length of the field and scoring.
Mind you, Alexis McAllister did his best effort of that the other day for Liverpool. I mean, I'm a Liverpool fan, but Jesus Christ, buddy. Get up. I mean, Virgil was telling him to get up, but
I know it's
anyway,
embarrassing. I
it
mean, and
is. It
but the
is.
same with the referees. I mean, I wasn't that polite to referees in my time, and maybe got sent off a few times from mistaken identity. But at the end of the day, it's very simple. Like in rugby, if you come within my bloody touching distance, booking, they'll soon learn. The players that as while they're thick, most of them, they'll soon learn. I
Yeah.
mean, I tell
Yep.
you, and this sums it up. The kid from Adelaide that scored that goal that got them into the second place runs behind the goal, takes his shirt off,
Yeah.
and then suddenly he gets a booking, which would infuriate a coach. And then someone says, "Oh, hello, he just got booked in the last fight that he had."
Yeah.
He misses the game. I mean, this is just some silly shit like that. So,
Yep.
but if they don't fix the games, I mean, and like I said, the time wasting. You stop the clock. Your fourth official can just run the time, and then all of a sudden you clock's the clock.
Yeah.
And then you got no argument about when a corner's being taken, and then the referee seems to wait until that play's over.
Or even worse, a long throw these days,
Yep,
mate. I
yep,
mean,
yep. So just if you don't speed the game up again,
Yep.
and offside can be simple. I quite like Wenger's latest thing about there's daylight between
daylight.
the attack and
Yeah.
defender, and that'll change the game. That'll. So, you make it simple. If they can't choose within 10, 20 seconds, because,
Yep.
it's like rugby. And I think I remember the Welshman referee was retiring. He says, well, when you're sitting there and you're trying to find in 2 minutes a reason not to give it, why don't you spend 10 seconds on a reason to give it? And, because it's almost like you're trying to find shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there is lots
Well,
of
Completely.
that there.
it always used to be if the linesman thought the attacker and the defender were level, it always went in favour of the attacker, didn't it?
Yep.
Yep.
But just make it simple, man. You can't argue about who, like when they're leaning forward, if my elbow's forward and it's not affecting the play, why am I counting it?
Yeah.
It's
Exactly.
very easy. Make a decision, just do it on the feet. And
Yeah.
but but there's other ways you got to fix that. And the other bit is about people don't know what a foul is anymore. So
No.
in the first half you can kick someone in neck high and you
Yeah.
get a talking to, and then in the second half you touch his shirt with a little bit of a tug,
And he'll fall forward.
and you fall forward, and there's a
Yeah.
booking and a penalty.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the game's still number one.
It's
It's still, but when you
it's
see it live, you
evolving.
just see
It's
how quick.
evolving. It'll be so interesting to see where it is in 20 years. Hopefully they don't go too far. But yeah,
There's a whole
I'd
there's a whole
love
lot of
to.
wokesters got to get involved yet. Well,
Yeah, true,
they
true. Yeah,
so,
it'll just be reels, won't it?
yeah,
Just be
yeah.
'Well,
45-second reels.
as Aaron and I have been saying to each other over the years since VAR has been around, it was introduced to get rid of the howler. And as you say, if you can't make a decision in 10 or 15 seconds, it's obviously not a howler. So just
Yeah.
get on with it.
Now they're making howlers. Now they're making howlers to
Yeah.
start trying
Yeah.
to get rid of the howlers.
Yeah.
It's like the decisions still come down to a human being making the decision, though, isn't it?
But in defence, because you're clearly not an Arsenal fan, is that the goal they scored against Burnley from
Yep.
a corner,
Yep.
there was no scrum, there was no player touched anyone. You go back and watch that goal,
Hmm.
and it was a matter of simple timing, and the player
Yep.
ran through,
Yep.
no interference anywhere. It was unbelievable compared to all the games you've seen in the previous weeks
Yep.
of where people are standing and pushing and crap like that. It was
Yeah,
just amazing.
that was their only shot on goal, I think. Yeah, that's
um,
absolutely stunning football by Arsenal. Stunning football. Get people
I
back.
presume you're going to the A-League final on Saturday night?
Is it day? Oh, that's tomorrow, isn't it?
That's
I think
tomorrow
it is.
night, mate.
Yeah. No, we're going. Yeah, we're
Yeah,
going.
good man.
They've done really
What?
well there,
They have.
and now there'll be people saying, "Oh, yeah, but they should have done because they've their salary caps waived in the first 2 years." And that this is a new football club,
That's right.
and they're doing a hell of a job for the way football should be in developing a club, and they're going to get a full house, which they deserve, and one hopes they turn up on the day.
Yeah, they can say that, mate. But I mean, Auckland's had two opportunities to do this before, and they've never done it
Yeah,
anywhere
yeah,
near as well as what they're doing it now.
yeah,
But
yeah,
they're getting the crowds along. They're playing good
yeah,
football. It's
yeah.
worth watching. It's a
And
good.
the big thing is they're creating superstars.
Yep.
And in
Yep.
people's minds, and you see some of the stuff that goes on in those things now, and their families, and the kids,
Absolutely.
and everything.
And the
And
chanting and the
and the port crowd is
isn't it great?
yeah. Well, I'd make one little warning here: is
Go on.
I've seen them in action. They're wonderful, and they've just got to be a little bit careful with the language when kids are in the
Yep.
same area, because that is a great atmosphere for football. People getting involved, they've got a sense of purpose and belonging. they've just got to be careful on social media because some of them, you are
A bit
getting
aggressive, eh?
a bit aggressive. But
Yeah.
no, the 99% of them are great, so they need to self-regulate, and they are doing that. I understand.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to go and make it all too polite. You want to be taking the mickey out of the opposition. You want to sing
Of
songs,
course you do.
but you don't want to describe them as things that are not really for
Yeah.
use in a church. So,
Yeah.
so,
Absolutely.
but they're just so good to watch it, and you see that build up beforehand, and it's just this. It's like overseas, which is where
It
the game's
is.
growing, and the big thing is you see kids are buying shirts
Young,
and wearing shirts and
exactly.
nothing, and
Young
they know
people,
who's who and everything else, and that's
exactly.
football.
Young people around
Yep.
town wearing Auckland City shirts. It's just,
Yep.
it's so good to see. So good to see.
And the interesting thing for New Zealand is that New Zealanders now, value, the All Whites. They value
Yeah.
them since the '82 time, and that
Yep.
was one of our greatest achievements. We made it sort of okay to be a football support. And we said, even when I was chairman for those years, I said, even if they just come in and watch us once, twice a year, or it's about
Totally.
whether we've got respect. And it's not about saying we'll be the number one sport, because number one participation is there anyway.
Yep.
And you don't want to why put those threats out there? Just
Yep.
say this is a viable alternative for anyone that wants to play football. And by the way, you can make a lot of money if you're any good at it and work hard.
Exactly.
Look at what
And
some
by
of
the
the
way,
girls.
it's called football.
Yeah. And there's
There you go.
even guys like you have now got a job. You got a podcast. God
There you
bless
go,
you.
mate. There you go. Hey, before we go, should we? You got anything else, Macca? Are we going to do the questionnaire?
Just one quick question around back to your playing days. Who were some of your favorite teammates, and who were the characters in the changing rooms?
Oh God, I can't remember.
You remember the
Honest,
coaches?
I remember a lot of people told me off. um, funny enough, I mean, it's more, I've got just lots of great memories of lots of players I played with, and and all in their own environment, in their own time, and you all go, you all go through some, same experiences together. It's all fun. I do recall with fondness when I went to play university for the year after, it must be '85, because Trevor Brooking had come over and they'd had 14 internationals playing for university, and they got last. And then the only thing that team did was they kept them up in the playoff. And so when I didn't get, I got dropped by Vic Mobley the year after in the National League, even though I got Player of the Year and everything like that the year before.
Yeah.
And so I had no clubs, and I went to university. They were real underdogs because they'd got 14 new players, because no one stayed from the superstars from the year before, and that was probably in terms of doing something special, because no one expected it, and we got third in one year and fourth in the next, and then they got kicked out of the league, and I'd gone to play moved to Mount Maunganui then, so. I felt for that, because that was a team that had survived. We then remember the down in Wellington, Tyndall had gone there and he was slightly upset, and he threw a bucket of water. That unfortunately the water travelled on a wall, over the wall, and landed on a referee.
Oh, no.
So he got a bit
No.
suspended and everything like that. So, but that was a team of memories,
Oh,
and,
no.
and still good memories with those lads. So.
What about opposition players? Who's the perhaps the greatest or the most intimidating, or the one you've been most starstruck by? Obviously, you mentioned Zico before. I mean, what
Oh,
about
yeah,
this?
no, that's one. But just in terms of local, I mean, I've never starstruck, because we're all on the same level as far as I
Sure.
was concerned. But one player who was, and sums them up, was Steve Sumner.
Mm.
He was the biggest arsehole to play against, but the biggest friend. He was a good arsehole when he was on your side.
Yeah.
But he was something else. He was so passionate about the game. He would drag people to the level he expected and everything like that. When you play with him, against him, he was a mean son of a bitch, but he was a bloody great character, a great friend, and
Yeah.
I miss him dearly. And but I always said to him one time, I says, mate, you know. He would go out and call me Santa if I dropped a cross or something like that, and sort of, and then and the next week we're in the New Zealand team together, and he's picking me up and, come on, we can do better.
Yeah.
We're the best
Yeah.
goalkeeper we got.
Yeah.
And you get him, and then so many people you go through, life with, and you sort of have just a moment when you meet him a few times, and now it's just memories. So,
Yeah. Yep.
As a Liverpool fan, did you ever get a chance to chat with Dalglish after the game?
yes, and I've met quite a few of those people over the times. After one story is after the Brazil game, I got selected for the drug testing.
Oh,
and it's you can drink whatever you like in there, and I've never seen a bar like it. But I couldn't go for an hour and a half, and neither could the other guys because
oh,
it
dang.
was so much bloody takes it out of you the game.
Yeah.
And Zico came in and wanted my shorts because we had some really cool gear in those days, some Adidas ones, and
Yeah.
I gave him my shorts, and I got
Oh,
a full kit from the goalkeeper, including his shorts and his
oh,
his
mate.
shirt and
Have you
everything
still
like that.
got it?
Yeah,
Oh,
I can show you
fantastic.
the photo right now. But
Oh, go on. Go on. Let's do
mate.
it. Let's do it.
I
Let's
got
have
to
a
work
look.
out how to do it, of course.
Oh, don't
Oh
worry.
no, I'll just turn it around
You're
and
doing
then.
great. You're doing great.
Yeah, here we go. Look at this.
Oh,
Can you see that one? Oh,
where are we? Turn it around. Oh,
Ah,
dude.
yeah,
Oh, what a handsome chap.
yeah.
Eh?
And there's the 81, and then
Oh, mate.
uh,
Some killer mustaches, eh?
oh,
I
yeah.
think.
fantastic.
Yes.
Oh,
So,
mate,
so,
that's been.
so
That
there's
is.
that kit that we used to do, the famous.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Oh my
yeah,
God.
yeah.
That is
So
fantastic, mate.
yeah,
That is
so,
so good. Thank you
yeah.
so much for
So
showing us that.
yeah,
That
it's
is
for sale.
amazing.
It's for sale. The Brazil shirt's for sale.
Oh, really? Where you
Well, I'm a pensioner now. I've got to make some.
go? Nothing's not for sale. Everything.
But the other one is for sale is the ICCP jersey. The
Oh,
Russian jersey
the
because that.
Oh,
Russian
yep,
goal.
yep.
Is it the
Yeah.
goalkeeper's jersey or the which one?
No, I've got the goalkeeper's one, but I've also got the other
One of
one.
the outfield players' jerseys.
One of the outfield players.
Oh,
I think it's
absolutely
here.
superb. Oh, this is something new for the Hot Air Sports podcast, ladies
It
and
Well,
certainly
gentlemen.
is.
look at this. No idea. Look at this one. I'll show you this one.
Oh, let's have a look.
You got that one?
No, we can't see.
Why not? Oh, no, got to do it that way.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
way.
Oh my
Oh, there it
God.
is.
Oh my God. That is classic.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Is there a number on the back?
Yeah, number
15.
15.
15. Oh, mate.
remember.
Even the number's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, so who was that made by? Was that an Adidas top?
That wasn't
Adidas.
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 That's got two stripes. Oh, no,
It's got
that's
two
Oh,
three
yeah.
stripes.
stripes.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
were
because
Adidas as well.
oh no, it is
Yeah.
Adidas.
Yeah.
But it's just they made the Russian shirts. It's kind
Yeah.
of crazy. Back in the 80s, Adidas had a contract with the Russians. It's
Yep.
nuts. Oh.
Mm.
So if
Right,
someone wanted
before
to make a bid
oh.
on that, how do they buy those?
No, I'd like to put it on something. I wouldn't know how to do it.
Okay. We'll
Get one of
keep you
your
updated
grandkids
here.
to do it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so just before we go, we've got a hot air questionnaire for you. We just want to know you a little bit better outside the sporting frame. We do this to all the guests we've had. We've had Nisbo on here, haven't we, mate? We've had a couple of other people with the hot air questionnaire. So starting with, can you cook, mate? What's your signature dish if you can, and what's your favourite food?
I cook all the time on the barbecue: steak, eggs, and chips.
Nice. Meat eater.
A
Yes.
meat eater. Yep.
That sounds like you, Frank. 3 dinner party guests, dead or alive.
Oh God.
Yeah.
3 dinner party guests.
Yeah.
Gee, I wouldn't know where to start.
3 of your favorite people, 3 of your heroes, favorite people you'd like to meet that you haven't met.
This is difficult. I wouldn't even know.
It is
so many
difficult.
of them. I met all prime ministers.
You met everyone.
I met all bloody FIFA people. I met bloody all the top players.
He's met
Pele.
everyone. Yeah.
I've met Pele. I've met bloody Diego Maradona. And
There you go.
I've been fortunate, so But my favourite people would be my wife and my 3 sons. Here we go.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, that's the right answer. That's the right. Are you a cat or a dog? Cats or dogs, mate? Cats or dogs?
Having got both, I bloody wish I hadn't. So
Neither.
neither.
Music taste, favorite band.
Anyone from the 80s.
Nice. What about you? A sweet or a savoury person, mate? What?
Sweet.
Sweet person.
Yep.
Sweet tooth. You like Lamington or two?
Everything like that. Ice cream, bloody, you name it, and all that.
Into the
Custard
bakery.
squares.
Custard square. Nice.
Oh, custard squares.
Nice.
I think I probably know the answer to this, but I'll ask anyway. Airbnb, hotel, or camping?
Hotel.
That's what we thought.
7 star. 7 star.
7-star hotel. 7-star hotel. What about a mundane thing you hate doing? Something you have to do a bit, but you just hate it.
Housework.
Housework. Yeah, yeah, pretty much the same as me. I
Yep.
vacuumed earlier. You might be able to tell.
I think you probably already said it, but what's your guilty pleasure?
I do like a nice whiskey.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't think you need to be guilty about that one though.
No.
What about your biggest fear?
That Man United will win the league.
Oh, best answer ever.
Tremendous, tremendous.
And our final question.
And finally, the best piece of advice you've ever received.
No regrets.
Nice. Frank Van Adam, thank you so much for joining us this morning on the Hot Air Sports Podcast, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for taking us through your whole career. We really do appreciate it. Make sure you like, subscribe. Hot Air Sports Podcast. We'll be back with another.
Yep. Thank you, Frank. It's been great to catch up after a few years gap in between.
And when he tells you that he worked really hard at BP, he never worked hard at BP.
To be fair, he's good at he works hard at not working hard. That boy.
I'm very good at not working hard. So you hit that one on the
He could have got a job with Wellington Transport because he was a bloody good passenger.
Oh, thank
all
you
right.
so much,
Enjoy the
mate.
World Cup in the United States, and
Up the All Whites.
we will chat again at some stage in the future.
All right, guys.
Thank you so much, Frank. Cheers, buddy.
See you later, mate. See you.